that they were some of the best eras for not just great and legendary films, but for some of the best talents to ever grace the industry. But for the actresses on this list, they brought more than just talent to the table. Their beauty was the talk of the entire industry, and somehow they found a way to make it work for them. It's one thing to have talent and act your heart out, but combining that with beauty and incredible attraction, they don't teach that at acting school. Ingrid Bergman. She had this rare kind of beauty that didn't scream for attention. It just drew you in quietly and completely. She wasn't about big, glamorous hairstyles or dramatic makeup like some of the other stars of her time. No, Ingrid's charm was in her simplicity. She had those soft, inviting eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 emotions, cheekbones that could have been carved by an artist, and a smile so genuine it felt like she was smiling just for you. What really set her apart, though, was how natural it all felt. She didn't look like someone trying to be beautiful. She just was. Even in a room full of the most dazzling Hollywood stars, Ingrid had this understated elegance that made her shine. It's no wonder audiences couldn't take their eyes off her in movies like Casablanca. She wasn't just playing Ilsa Lund. She was Ilsa. Every glance, every little expression, she made it all look so effortless, like beauty and emotion were second nature to her. But here's the thing. Ingrid wasn't just admired for how she looked. Sure, directors loved her striking features and the camera couldn't get enough of her, but people also fell for her warmth and intelligence. She had this approachable vibe, like you could sit down and have a real conversation with her. She didn't have that distant, untouchable aura some stars had. She was relatable, someone who seemed to glow from the inside out. Her co-stars couldn't stop talking about her. Bogart, for instance, knew he was working with someone truly special in Casablanca. And when she was in Gaslight, she was so magnetic, so believable, that you couldn't help but feel everything she was feeling. Her beauty wasn't just about her looks. It was the way she moved, the way she spoke, the way she made you believe in her characters. Even off-screen, people were in awe of her. She wasn't one to follow Hollywood's rules or play by its expectations, and that only added to her allure. She was real, she was different, and she was breathtaking in a way that didn't fade. To this day, Ingrid Bergman isn't just remembered as one of the most beautiful women of her time. She's remembered as one of the most beautiful women, period. Rita Hayworth. They called her the Love Goddess, and honestly, the name fit perfectly. She had this mesmerizing presence that made everyone stop and stare. Her fiery red hair wasn't just a trademark, it was like a symbol of her passion and charisma. And those classic old Hollywood waves, absolutely iconic. She looked like she stepped right out of a dream, and once you saw her, you didn't forget her. Her beauty was undeniable, but that wasn't all there was to her. She had this effortless sensuality that made her performances electric. Take Gilda, for example. That scene where she flips her hair back while singing, "Put the Blame on Mame," is still one of the most famous moments in film history. She didn't need flashy costumes or over-the-top gestures. She just was sexy. Her movements, her expressions, even the way she carried herself, it was magnetic. Audiences couldn't get enough of her, and honestly, who could blame them? But it wasn't just fans who adored her. Her co-stars and directors loved working with her because she had this magic combination of talent, charm, and beauty. Orson Welles, her second husband, once called her the most exciting woman I've ever known, and he wasn't alone in that sentiment. Rita had this rare ability to be both glamorous and approachable at the same time. She was the kind of woman everyone wanted to either be or be with. Off-screen, though, Rita's beauty sometimes felt like both a blessing and a curse. She became a symbol of desire in an era when women were often put on pedestals for their looks but not always appreciated for who they were. Behind that dazzling smile was a woman who longed for a simple, happy life, a stark contrast to the glamorous image Hollywood created for her. Even today, Rita Hayworth's legacy as one of the most beautiful stars of all time lives on. Whether it was the way her eyes seemed to sparkle in black and white film or how she lit up a room with her smile, Rita wasn't just a star, she was a phenomenon. She'll always be remembered as the ultimate love goddess, someone who defined beauty and sensuality for generations to come. Lauren Bacall. Her sharp, piercing eyes seemed to see right through you, and her sultry, smoky voice became her signature. She wasn't the kind of actress you could ignore. Everything about her exuded confidence and sophistication. Her on-screen debut in To Have and Have Not opposite Humphrey Bogart was nothing short of unforgettable. That famous moment where she says, "You know how to whistle, don't you?" instantly cemented her as a Hollywood legend. Bacall wasn't just beautiful. She had an edge, a mix of elegance and boldness that made her stand out in every scene. She had a natural sophistication that felt effortless. Whether she was wearing a sleek evening gown or a simple blouse and pencil skirt, she carried herself with a poise that couldn't be taught. Directors and audiences alike were drawn to her because she wasn't just another pretty face. She had a presence. When she looked at the camera, it felt like she was letting you in on a secret. Her pairing with Humphrey Bogart, both on and off screen, only added to her allure. They had undeniable chemistry that translated into some of Hollywood's most iconic films, like The Big Sleep and Key Largo. Bacall brought a mix of intelligence and sensuality to her roles that made her unforgettable. Lauren Bacall wasn't about flashiness or over-the-top glamour. She had a quiet power, a magnetic quality that made her one of the most captivating stars of her time. Decades later, her performances and style still feel timeless. Gene Tierney. No matter how hard you tried, you just couldn't take your eyes off Gene. Her beauty was almost otherworldly. Sharp cheekbones, perfectly arched eyebrows, and those luminous green eyes that seemed to hold a world of mystery. She didn't just shine on screen, she practically glowed. There was something delicate yet powerful about her appearance, a mix that made her unforgettable. In Laura, she played the title character with an elegance that made it impossible not to fall for her, just like the men in the story did. Her beauty wasn't just surface level. It carried a haunting quality, as though there was always something deeper beneath her flawless exterior. Then came Leave Her to Heaven, where she gave a chilling performance as a dangerously obsessive woman. Her stunning looks made her character even more unsettling, proving she could do more than just play the perfect ingenue. But Tierney's presence was more than being flashy or overly glamorous. She had a natural grace, a refined charm that set her apart from other actresses of her time. Audiences were drawn to her like moths to a flame, captivated by her timeless allure. Critics often praised her as one of the most striking women to ever grace the silver screen, and it's easy to see why. What made Tierney so fascinating was how she balanced her delicate beauty with strong, memorable performances. She wasn't just a pretty face, she was an actress who could pull you into her world with a single glance. Even decades later, her performances and that unforgettable face still leave a lasting impression. Gene Tierney didn't just act in films. She became part of Hollywood's golden age magic. Hedy Lamarr. A vision of glamour and sophistication with striking features that made her one of the most beautiful stars of her era. Her dark hair, flawless complexion, and piercing eyes gave her a commanding presence that lit up the screen. In Samson and Delilah, she embodied beauty and allure, perfectly capturing the essence of a timeless seductress. Off-screen, Lamarr was equally captivating. She had a brilliant mind and was deeply involved in inventing technology that laid the groundwork for modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Despite her scientific achievements, it was her stunning looks and magnetic performances that kept her in the spotlight. Lamarr's beauty wasn't just in her appearance. It was in the way she carried herself, with an air of mystery and elegance that few could match. Her life remains proof of her unique combination of talent and sophistication, making her one of Hollywood's most unforgettable icons. Grace Kelly. With striking blonde hair, flawless skin, and piercing blue eyes, Grace Kelly embodied a kind of beauty that seemed almost otherworldly. On screen, her regal elegance and poised demeanor made her a standout in films like Rear Window and To Catch a Thief. She wasn't just beautiful, she had a calm, graceful presence that made her effortlessly captivating. Every gesture felt deliberate yet natural, and her performances exuded a kind of sophisticated charm that was hard to ignore. Off-screen, Grace's life was just as enchanting. In 1956, she made the stunning decision to leave Hollywood behind and marry Prince Rainier III of Monaco, becoming Princess Grace. This real-life fairy tale only enhanced her aura of elegance. Even as she embraced her royal duties, her beauty and poise remained legendary, cementing her place as one of the most iconic women in Hollywood history. Sophia Loren. With her captivating curves and sultry charm, Sophia Loren quickly became one of the most unforgettable stars of her time. She was more than just a beautiful face. Her presence on screen was magnetic. In movies like Two Women and Marriage Italian Style, Loren didn't just play a role. She brought an intensity and depth that made you feel every moment. Her striking features, paired with her passionate performances, created a combination that set her apart from many of her peers. What made Sophia Loren stand out wasn't just her physical beauty, though it was impossible to ignore, but the way she carried herself with an effortless elegance. She had a confidence that seemed to come naturally, a mix of grace and power that resonated both on and off screen. It's no wonder she became a true icon of her era. Beyond her acting, Loren's realness and authenticity made her a favorite not just among fans but also within the industry. She wasn't just a symbol of desire. She was a woman who worked hard, owned her space, and built a life that lasted long after her biggest films. Her beauty was timeless, but it was her talent and personality that really made her unforgettable. Brigitte Bardot. She had this effortless, magnetic charm that you couldn't ignore. Her look was bold with her signature platinum blonde hair and that laid-back yet sexy style that just screamed 1960s. In And God Created Woman, she wasn't just playing a role. She became the embodiment of freedom and sensuality. Her wide eyes, pouty lips, and that natural no-makeup vibe made her the ideal symbol of beauty at the time. She had this carefree attitude that made her even more alluring. She wasn't trying to look perfect, she was just being herself, which made her even more irresistible. There was something in the way she moved, the way she looked at the camera. It wasn't just her body, it was her whole presence. People couldn't get enough of her, and she became the quintessential symbol of a certain kind of sexy freedom that wasn't afraid to be playful or a little provocative. Bardot wasn't just a pretty face, she had a way of carrying herself that made her stand out from the other beauties of the time. She exuded confidence, but it didn't feel forced. It was like she was in on a secret and everyone else was just trying to keep up. Her beauty was effortless, but it was powerful, and it made her one of the most iconic actresses of her generation. Julie Christie. If you remember her, you'd know she was the kind of beauty that didn't need any of the usual Hollywood glam or heavy makeup to stand out. In Darling, for example, she was all about that youthful energy, with her wild, untamed hair and those eyes that seemed to look right through you. It wasn't just her looks, though. She had this grounded, real thing about her that made her feel different from the usual glamorous movie stars. In Dr. Zhivago, she was still that same earthy beauty, but in a more classic, romantic role. There was something about her that felt so genuine, like she wasn't trying to fit into any box. She just was who she was. People loved her for it. She wasn't the typical cookie-cutter Hollywood starlet. She had a softness, but also a strength that was pretty rare at the time. And you know what? It wasn't just her physical beauty that made her unforgettable. It was her presence, the way she carried herself with that perfect mix of innocence and boldness. She had this ability to draw you in with just a look, making her the perfect face of the 60s swing scene. It was that real, approachable beauty that made her so relatable, yet still totally captivating. Catherine Deneuve. There was something almost ethereal about her. Icy blonde hair, sharp features, and an elegance that could stop you in your tracks. In Belle de Jour, Catherine Deneuve's presence was magnetic. She had this cool, composed aura that made her stand out in any scene. It wasn't just about her beauty, though. It was the way she carried herself, perfectly poised and effortlessly chic. In a time when Hollywood glam was all about being bold and brash, Deneuve brought a new kind of sophistication to the screen. She wasn't the typical glamorous star. Instead, she embodied a more subtle, enigmatic beauty that felt otherworldly. Her look, with those striking cheekbones and calm demeanor, gave off a sense of mystery that intrigued everyone. But it wasn't just her look that made her a true icon. It was how she blended her beauty with complex characters that left audiences captivated. She was the ultimate symbol of elegance in French cinema, and even when playing more daring or controversial roles, like in Belle de Jour, she maintained that air of untouchable grace. Her beauty wasn't loud or obvious. It was more of a quiet power that drew people in. And that's what made Catherine Deneuve such an enduring icon. You couldn't help but be fascinated by her, because she was everything that screamed sophistication, yet had a depth that was impossible to ignore. Natalie Wood. This Hollywood actress was a special kind of beauty. There was something so effortlessly charming about Natalie Wood. She had this fresh, youthful beauty that felt both innocent and captivating at the same time. In films like West Side Story and Splendor in the Grass, she became the girl next door everyone wanted to know. It wasn't just her looks, though. It was how she brought warmth and vulnerability to her roles. You couldn't help but root for her characters because she had that genuine, relatable quality. With her wide, expressive eyes and soft features, Wood's beauty had a natural, almost unpolished feel to it. Yet, she still oozed star power. Whether she was playing the troubled lover in Splendor in the Grass or the passionate Maria in West Side Story, she had a way of drawing you into her world without ever trying too hard. Her beauty was timeless, and it was that mix of innocence and depth that made her stand out among the many stars of her time. She didn't need to be flashy or over the top to capture attention. It was all in the way she carried herself, the subtle grace she brought to every scene. It's easy to see why she became a beloved icon, because she was more than just a pretty face. She was a star with heart. Elizabeth Taylor. You know those rare beauties who could leave you speechless with just one glance? Elizabeth Taylor was it. Her violet eyes, yes, violet, were nothing short of mesmerizing, giving her an otherworldly allure that made her stand out in every film she was in. You couldn't look at her without being captivated by that intense gaze. And let's not forget the rest of her. Taylor had a perfectly sculpted face, with high cheekbones, full lips, and that flawless skin that seemed to glow under the Hollywood lights. In A Place in the Sun, she played a character whose beauty matched her troubled, complex emotions. But it was in Cleopatra where she became an icon, bringing an entire era to life with her elegance and regal presence. Her portrayal of the Egyptian queen wasn't just about looks. It was about power, passion, and an undeniable charisma that could steal any scene. Off-screen, her beauty was equally legendary. She was often described as the epitome of glamour, known for her iconic style, jewelry, those diamonds, and her passionate, sometimes tumultuous love life. Elizabeth Taylor wasn't just a pretty face, she was a force of nature, and it was that combination of stunning looks and undeniable talent that made her unforgettable. You don't get the title of the most beautiful woman in the world for nothing. Marilyn Monroe. When it comes to beauty and charm, Marilyn was the exact definition, captivating everyone who crossed her path. She wasn't just a beautiful face, she had this magnetic presence that was impossible to ignore. Her platinum blonde hair, iconic red lips, and that signature beauty mark made her an unforgettable image. But it wasn't just her looks. It was the way she carried herself, with a mix of vulnerability and undeniable confidence that made her even more enchanting. Men were drawn to her like moths to a flame. She had a way of making the camera and everyone around her feel like she was the only one in the room. When she walked into a scene, everything else faded. Her innocent, playful persona was contrasted by a deeper, more sultry side that seemed to bubble beneath the surface. She knew how to turn on the charm, whether it was with a coy smile or those wide, innocent eyes that hid a world of complexity. In Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, her performance as the bubbly, gold-digging Lorelei Lee became legendary, and you can see why. Men, both in the story and in real life, just couldn't resist her. And in Some Like It Hot, she was the epitome of beauty and comedic timing, making her a hit on screen and a heartthrob off it. Marilyn wasn't just a pretty face. She was the kind of beauty that made men fall for her and women envy her. Even after all these years, her beauty and mystique have remained unmatched. She was the ultimate blonde bombshell for a reason, a rare combination of physical allure and emotional depth that still holds the world's attention. Ava Gardner. She had that raw, undeniable allure that made her the epitome of old Hollywood glamour. She wasn't just beautiful, she had this intense, smoldering presence that could light up a room. Whether she was playing the sultry temptress or the tragic romantic lead, Gardner had a way of captivating the audience with her eyes alone. Her striking features, high cheekbones, full lips, and thick dark hair paired perfectly with a sultry, smoky gaze that became her signature. In films like Mogambo and The Barefoot Contessa, she exuded an effortless sensuality, but it was never overdone. It was like she didn't have to try. Her beauty was so natural it felt almost untouchable. She had that old-school Hollywood magic, the kind of beauty that made men swoon and women admire from afar. She wasn't just a pretty face. Her strength and independence came through in her roles, making her even more magnetic. Off-screen, Ava lived a passionate, somewhat tumultuous life, but it only added to the allure. She had relationships with some of the most powerful men of her time, including Frank Sinatra, and that reputation for fiery romance only fueled the public's fascination with her. But despite her complicated personal life, she remained this enigmatic figure, a perfect blend of beauty and depth that left a lasting mark on Hollywood's golden age. When people talk about Hollywood glamour, Ava Gardner is always at the top of the list.